Hello, everyone. This is Inside the Leader's Mind. I'm David Suson, your host. I'm so excited to have our guest today. He's a senior healthcare technology leader with more than 30 years of experience. For over 20 years, he's been in leadership roles across healthcare, biotech, and insurance. And he's passionate about using digital tools, automation, and AI to make care more efficient. He works to improve the experience for both patients and providers while helping organizations grow in a responsible way. He's built strong teams, he's created partnerships, he's led big changes that made a real difference for patients, clients, communities, and the companies and teams he's been a part of. Please welcome Ashwini Hassija.
Thank you, David.
Now, did I pronounce your name right?
Absolutely, you got it.
I always want to make sure I'm being considerate of that. Hey, thank you so much for being with me today. I so appreciate it. You have an incredible amount of experience in technology and healthcare. And where I'd like to start is give people a little bit of a foundation of your journey to where you are today.
First of all, thank you, David. Thank you to you and giving me the opportunity to speak to your audience. I really appreciate that. And the warm welcome and the warm background information. So thank you. Just a quick wee bit about me. You mentioned about 30 years plus experience. I won't go into all the 30 years, but at a very high level, how did I get to this healthcare technology leadership roles, if you will? I started my career as a programmer, actually, way back when, and very quickly realized that I'm cut out for managing projects and leading projects and helping folks mature and grow the organization, if you will. That made me switch to program management, and I had the opportunity. I was working for a company that got me to travel all across the world, Europe, Asia, the US, and many different places, if you will. And about 25 years ago, I decided to move to US. And one of my early experiences after I moved was associating myself with a healthcare payer organization, where my consulting firm had outsourced all the IT functions of the healthcare company, of the payer organization. That was a turning point in my life when I decided this is a field that I want to be associated with. And since then, I've been associated with healthcare technology, various areas of healthcare, if you will. But that's how I got to this role, and then just kept moving forward with experiences in different areas of healthcare. So just a quick introduction and background about me. So
that's
thank you.
Very fascinating that you started as a programmer, and then you moved into that role. What would you say, as you moved into leadership, what was it that really drew you to more running a project, running teams, compared to programming?
That's an interesting question. So when I started programming, I know I already told everyone about my 30 years experience, but you can date me and tell me what kind of programming I would have done then versus the kind of programming that exists today, or the ChatGPT kind of programming that doesn't really need a whole lot of programming, if you will. But way early in my life, I realized that I like working with people and helping them go through the process of learning and maturing, if you will. And my passion was also, and still continues to be, associated with working with the clients and understanding their needs and problems and help them solve the problems, not only solve the problem, but actually take a step further and help them proactively grow and mature and improve their operations and sales and marketing and the whole life cycle, if you will. That's pretty much what helped me or directed me to switch from programming to leading teams, and then in the later part of my life associate with the end consumers, the users, the business leaders, and so on and so forth.
It's interesting you share that, because I had a similar path. I started my career very technical, programming, electrical engineering. A lot of people don't know that about me. And I had an internship at Hewlett-Packard, and I was doing programming. And like you, I thought, I want to work with people. And I could not see myself, as much as I loved it, that really gave me the impetus to say, this is not what I want to be doing the rest of my career. And I made that shift. And I think a lot of people, especially young leaders, young people, I think today they're better at it, of saying, hey, this is the path I'm on. I want to go this way. But I think many years ago, people got stuck because it's like, well, this is what I went to school for, and I'm supposed to do this. So with that in mind, in your career, people that have worked with you, for you, have you seen a lot of that where people were maybe on a track and maybe you saw in them something different and you knew that they were destined for more or different? Because I think as a leader, that's really important that we do that to help develop people. What's your take on that?
Very interesting question, and David, I'll share with you. I'm an electrical engineer by education too. There we go. How much of electrical engineering have we used in our lives past the school and a little bit after that? Not specifically electrical engineering, but what we learned and how our minds started thinking and analyzing things differently. That's what we got out of this education.
Right.
And I share this with everyone. My 10-year-old son, he asks me this question all the time. Daddy, you are an engineer. What are you doing in a healthcare technology world, healthcare world as an engineer? What engineering do you do? But over the last few years, he has realized, a 10-year-old has realized how engineering relates to what we do on a day-to-day basis. So to your question, what have we seen? What have I seen in youngsters? My 10-year-old is a live example of it. How he has understood the need of some level of education that helps you change your thinking, helps you mature your thinking, and then you can do whatever after that. But to your specific question, yes, I've seen a lot of folks, especially in the IT development world when I started, people from all walks of engineering and non-engineering backgrounds were joining the software development world, and I think they still do that today, and being successful in it. Mm-hmm. So I still believe it's the mindset change that education brings to you, and after that you can do whatever. It doesn't mean that you have to be educated. We've seen a lot of examples of people that did not complete their college, but they are, the most successful people in the world. But I'm just talking about in general.
Right. What do you think the role? I want to shift gears just a tiny bit because things are a little different than they used to be, especially with AI. What do you see are the challenges that leaders are going to have with their employees with AI today and going forward?
That's a very loaded question.
Yeah, it is.
And has a
there's not a right or wrong. I'm just curious. I love getting different perspectives, but
no, you're right. There's not a right or wrong answer. There are many different perspectives I would say one can have, and I can share a few perspectives of my own, if you will. Like I said, when we started our careers, and I'm pulling you into that conversation, once we got out of the engineering school, the kind of programming was very different. The world was very different at that time. You would write code in COBOL and RPG, and I was just talking to somebody the other day about RPG, one of my first programming languages that was so structured. And now they said it's a free-flowing, unstructured programming. The RPG has come a long way. So has the profession, if you will.
Yeah.
But long story short, AI and programming, AI and development, there's a lot of opportunities there. how does it change the programming and development? And this is where my philosophy, and we'll probably talk about that in a little bit, maybe I'm queuing this up, but my philosophy of every programmer, every developer, every technology individual needs to understand why are they doing that programming and development. What business value are they going to bring to the business, to the organization, to the department that they're working for, that they're writing this program for. And AI is only taking us in that direction. Unless you provide good input to the AI tools and technology, you're not going to get a decent output from it. That's one way
right.
things are changing and will change.
What about from a leadership perspective? What do you think the challenges leaders will have with their teams, their employees, as this starts to happen more and more?
I'll compare the two, what I experienced 20, 25, 30 years ago and today, if you will, and I'll share an example. This was about 20 years ago. I had a young developer in my team, and they said, well, I understand the client's needs, and give me 3 days and I'll have the answer solution developed. Well, I had the luxury of giving them 3 days. I said, go ahead, try it out. I don't have a whole lot of confidence you'll get what the client really needs, but I have the luxury of giving you 3 days. Go ahead and do it. 3 days with an understanding that if this does not turn out to be the way it should have, you promise me that for the rest of your life you will follow a certain method and approach that brings value to this process, if you will, or the process brings value to the output, if you will. He agreed. Smart guy, smart person. He agreed. And 3 days later, when the team reviewed what he had developed, it was not meeting the mark, if you will. And the smartest person on earth said, I agree, and I promise I will remember your comments for the rest of my life. That was an achievement for him and I both, I would say. So I call him the smartest guy that learned from it. I think the same logic, same situation will apply here, that we believe we have an answer to everything, but there's certain input that needs to go into it, and the leaders will have to figure out how to make the technology folks understand how best to use AI. It's only as good as you provide the input to it. So how best to provide that input and help the staff and the technologists learn is going to be a challenge and opportunity for the leaders. I hope I'm making sense.
Absolutely. How about kind of branching off that question? What do you think the greatest leadership challenges in general are today with teams?
In my experience, I've learned the area that I just touched upon. The leaders helping the staff understand why are they doing the work they are doing. It's not a vanilla set of work that you can tell them, here's what you need to develop, and you expect that to meet the business outcomes and the business expectations. I think they need to understand why are they developing something. And it's not only about development, it's about the whole life cycle. Why and what kind of infrastructure is needed, IT infrastructure is needed to meet the business needs. If they better understand it's a tier 1 function or a system or a tier 2 or tier 3, and what I mean by that is, for example, if our banking website is down even for 5 seconds, it's a big deal. You and I, as a consumer of a banking website, cannot live without it even for 5 seconds. If I'm logging in, I want it to be working. I can't wait for 5 seconds, 10 seconds. I don't know when it will come back. It just brings my confidence in it down, if you will. Versus if it's let's say a home mortgage initiation function that can wait for 10 minutes to be brought back up, and the consumers are not really that badly impacted as a banking website might be. So what kind of infrastructure should be set up for one or the other? that's important. It's important for the technology folks to understand the purpose of it, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's where leadership challenges come in. How do you help them understand this? I've personally used it as an opportunity to educate my staff as much as possible in understanding the purpose of what they're doing, why they're doing it.
Good. Love that. Since this is called Inside the Leader's Mind, I love getting insight into how people think. What do you think your greatest superpower is as a leader?
The flip side of the coin that I just shared. It's an opportunity, but I have embraced that opportunity for a long time, and I've always been of the opinion and consciously focus on how to make sure my staff, my team, understands what they're doing, why they're doing it. I was a part of an organization where the leadership was rotated between different functions of the organization, of the IT organization, that they had to move from application development, operations application development, commercial application development, to R&D application development, to infrastructure, to security, to different areas of technology, so that they learn about the various areas and they also add value from a business perspective into each of those functions. Someone who's, like I mentioned, someone who's over the infrastructure may not so well understand the importance of that infrastructure. So it's leaders' responsibility to spread that knowledge, if you will. So I've consciously and effectively, made an effort to develop that skill set and that knowledge base within the team. That's something that I treasure, and the test is when the team says, "Now I understand why I'm doing what I'm doing."
Yeah.
When you hear
That's
that
great.
from somebody, you realize that all your effort has been paying results.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were to advise, so kind of a double question here. If you were to advise other leaders that are experienced, or you were to advise younger leaders who are up and coming, what would you tell an existing leader of, how to become even better? And maybe you already answered it in your question, but what advice would you give them? Someone that's maybe a peer, how to get them even better? And what advice would you give someone who's an up and coming?
Let me start with advice to a peer. And this is another area, actually, that I believe I can do better. And I've seen this in many organizations, that when we define the goals of my department, how well are they aligned to the organization, the company's goals in general, if you will, KPIs, goals, whatever you want to call it. And trickling those goals and KPIs down from the senior most level, from the company level to the individual level, and then being able to relate to them, if you will, and create a link between all of them. That's an opportunity I think many organizations can do better, if you will.
Yeah.
I, for one, I know I can do better on that. As far as an upcoming leader, that varies from individual to individual, if you will, but the ability to work very closely with your staff and develop a relationship that has confidence in each other is very important, because you're only as good a leader as you are as your team supports you. You're not an expert in everything. You have to have your team to support you, and for you to be successful, and for them to be successful, for the team to be successful. So develop
What do you
that.
think the secret of that is?
Sorry, say it again.
What is the secret of that? and your opinion, to get them to be that way?
I have personally, in my view, again, I can just share my thoughts on that, is passion and compassion. You have to have a passion to work with people and help them, learn and grow. And at the same time, you have to have the compassion to be able to do that. I'll share, I love stories, so I'm going to share a quick story here.
Yeah, love it.
I have many, but I'll share one. This is related to my team. So we are in a closed door meeting, a 2-day closed door meeting, my directs and I. And we start the meeting by breaking the ice and say, we're all going to share either a professional or personal story that you want others to know. You're not forced to share anything. If you don't want to, fine, don't. But the way it went around in the room, most of them shared their personal stories, including me. And some of the team members had tears in their eyes based on the stories that we all shared. This told everybody's vulnerable. Everybody has something or the other going on in their lives which the others don't know. They brought us so close. We were close before, but that brought us even closer that till date, this was, my opportunities, roles before. Still in contact with those folks. They still call me. I still call them. That's the kind of relationship you develop. And they are committed to you. You didn't do this for their commitment. You did this because you're human. That just creates that bonding.
Yeah. I love that. That's really. I'm going to try to steal that. I like that a lot. I think it's really cool. Yeah, the way you did.
I have not patented it, so go ahead.
Shared. Yeah, no, I love that. So, let me ask you this: beyond what you already shared, I don't want to say if you had a do-over, but if you said, "Hey, I want to become even better as a leader," in addition to what you already shared, right? Understanding the why, etc. What else do you think, when you reflect on yourself, what would make you an even better leader than you are today?
I have to think. I think I'm the best. No, I'm just kidding. I think, like I said, being able to associate the goals of the organization and being able to translate them into the language of every individual. So this is one thing I take pride in, that I speak the language of my business partners, and I have developed great relationship with the business leaders, and stood in for them in their staff meetings when they were on a flight and there was nobody else to speak to their staff. I was asked to speak to their staff, if you will. An IT person being offered to speak to a business staff meeting, all staff meeting, I take pride in it. But I could do better if I could develop everybody like that they have the knowledge and understanding of the business and be able to provide value. And just going back to the AI, the AI is bringing technology and operations and business all so close that you have to be able to speak each other's language. When somebody tells you, you can do an API development and solve my problem. When a business leader tells you, you can do an API development and solve my problem, they know what API is. They may not be, an expert in API, but they know what it is. Similarly, I should be able to speak their language and help them solve their problems.
Yeah. I love that. All right. Kind of a different twist. I have a question here. And I've shared this on other podcasts. I always like to hear from my guests, what is the one question you wish I would have asked you? Or maybe not me. What is a question, I'll make it even broader, you wish people would ask you? Because you'd love to be able to share something about yourself or about a philosophy, but they don't always ask you. And they don't think to ask you, and you're not going to just blurt it out. But if someone asked you, you would have pride or be excited to share? What would that question be, and what would the answer be?
Somebody actually asked me this question a few days ago. A colleague said, Ashwini, have you thought about writing a book? Based on all the experiences that you've had, have you thought about writing a book? And it got me thinking. I had not thought about it, but my immediate response was, I haven't thought about it, but how many people read books these days? And how many people depend on audio medium, if you will, or audio media to learn and to read, if you will. Let me pose this question back to you, David. What do you think about this?
Well, wait, what's your answer then?
My answer was, I don't know. I'm probably more interested in speaking, and if you give me a chance to speak for an hour, I can speak for an hour. So maybe I can just translate that into a book. But I love to speak. Maybe podcast.
But your feeling is that not as many people are reading books. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm just sharing my experience. How many books do I read today? I have tons of books reading, but how many have I read, and how many books do I have time to read today? So I'm just sharing that based on my experience.
It's interesting. So I just finished a book, just released a book called Real Leadership, Real Results. And there are different reasons for doing books. One is it allows you to, I'll speak for myself, it allows me to get clarity of thought and just get it out of my head and create an archive of it. Meaning, here's my philosophy and put it in a book. It allows you to do a podcast, because you could turn that into a podcast, or it allows you to do an audio version you could share. It can lend credibility depending on what you're trying to do, right? If you're trying to look for a new job, you are looking to do consulting, you're looking to do speaking, but it also becomes a lasting, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my gosh. In consulting, you create a document. What do we call it? Not an archive. We call it an
artifact.
Artifact. Oh, for gosh sakes, yeah. So it creates this artifact that you have that also is kind of cool because it captures your perspective, your research, your ideas, which also can be shared with others once we're gone. Now, for me, that's not the reason, but for me, it's to share my own my philosophy of leadership, my philosophy, and to document it. And whether people read it, or whether they hear it, or whether they learn about it, and they say, David, I want you to come speak at my organization. Because when I'm not doing a podcast, I'm a keynote speaker. And I work with organizations, whether it's Toyota or Caterpillar, or the EPA, or whoever it is, and I go into these organizations and help create change, whatever it might be. So the book, in my case, lends credibility, but it also becomes a study guide. It also becomes hey, I also believe in that philosophy. Now, I'm talking about leadership, but your book could be whatever it is. And I think, I have a buddy of mine who has written 10 books, but he hasn't published yet, that are fiction. And he's just passionate about fiction. And he hasn't published yet because he's got some, sometimes we have things that hold us back personally of, either am I good enough, or there's fear, or whatever it might be. But some of that is storytelling. So I always believe everyone's got a book in them. And if that book is a hard copy book, or that book is a podcast or whatever, I really think I just coached. So I do executive coaching. And I just had a call with an executive yesterday who just had this exact same discussion about a book. And I said, her assignment was, I want you to come back when we have our next session, and I want to know what your objective of the book is. Like, is it credibility? Is it to get speaking engagements? Is it to build your brand? Is it to get a new job? Is it to get new clients? Is it to make money? Are you looking to be the next, Mel Robbins or Brene Brown or Tony Robbins or whatever it is, best-selling author, or whoever the, whatever, fiction writers. So I think the idea of a book is interesting. I think it really comes down to what do you want it for and why would you do it? And I don't think the reason should be because someone suggested you should. Because not everyone, I've met I've spoken literally to a couple 100,000 people all over the world, and I've met them and I hear their stories, and not all of them, but many. And everyone's got a story, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And they're like, really? I'm like, that's amazing. You should, and I hate saying you should tell your story, but they're like, yeah, that's not me. I don't have a need to share this story. And I'm like, okay, great. People would love to hear it, but they don't have that need to share. So that's kind of my opinion. And we can talk more about this at another time. I want to wrap with last thing.
David,
oh, sorry, go ahead. Comment or feedback. Sorry.
I learned something just now from this conversation and from this input from you, and a light bulb went on in me that you don't have to write for others; you could write for yourself.
Yeah.
And
true.
That's. I'm going to go back and review this topic again within myself.
I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. All right. Last thing to talk about is what would you like to share with our audience before we wrap up today's session?
So first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you and your audience. I'm very passionate about the healthcare system and the healthcare system improvements, if you will. I've spent a lot of my major part of my life around that area, if you will, both professionally and experienced the systems personally, if you will. And I'll share a couple of quick experiences and then ask for everyone's help. So 15 years ago, my wife's surgeon was using two EMR systems, electronic medical record systems. This is where the physicians, the doctors, and the hospitals record all your clinical information and so on and so forth, and make it a record, if you will. So she explained to me why she's using two systems. One was her physician practice system, where she was required to capture all the information, and the other was a hospital medical record system. And she was using two because one of the key reasons was because one provided better drug-to-drug interaction, so that she can help her patients prescribe better drugs by figuring out which drug interacts with which other drug. And there was not one system that could give her all this information. So I really applaud her and thank her for doing that, for taking the pains of using two different systems for the benefit of her patients. 15 years later, this is just last year, and many of you have probably experienced that when you are discharged from the hospital, you come home, you need, physical therapy and occupational therapy and nursing services at home and home help at home and so on and so forth. Last year, we had an experience where each of these services were provided individually by an individual with the same agency, but that agency did not know what the physical therapist did not know what occupational therapist was doing, did not know what the nurse was doing at home, when were they coming, and what kind of services were being provided. These are opportunities where we can improve our healthcare system. We have the best doctors, best clinical staff, best facilities in the world, but then there's more than the clinical staff and the facilities that create a healthcare system for the benefit of the patient. I'm sure everyone who's listening to this has experienced something like that in their lives. The great experiences they've had with the healthcare system and areas where there are opportunities to improve. I'd love to hear from your audience what their experiences have been. My LinkedIn profile has my contact information, my email address in there. please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, you want to connect with me. But at the same time, I would also like to hear your thoughts and experiences on this.
I love that. And when I post this, I'll make sure I have your LinkedIn profile. But I'm just gonna I'm gonna spell this for people that are listening. If you go to LinkedIn and you go to his profile, it's ASHWINI-HASSIJA. And you'll be able to find him, connect with him, and share your experience. I love that, especially as a healthcare technology professional. Those stories are really powerful because it helps our technologists and our leaders improve and build better systems, and those stories can help elevate the requirements, the needs, and things like that. So, well, that's our time. I want to thank you so much for being with me today. You've been an awesome guest, and I appreciate and value your insight. And ladies, folks, thank you all for listening today. I appreciate you, and all my best to all of you. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.